Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You have tuned in to one of my videos in a series that I like to call Waaay Out Wednesdays, or the acronym WOW for short. Thank you so much. We are going to be talking about children who remember their past lives and also psychic kids. So it's a pretty fun, action-packed video that I have for you today. I'm going to start out talking to you about children that remember their past lives, because I just think that is fascinating. So that's how we're going to start out. I'm going to just introduce to you something that you might want to look into after this video is over. The University of Virginia, the Division of Perceptual Studies. The Division of Perpetual Studies. This division is been run by Dr. Jim Tucker, and I think it's interesting because this is science. I love when I can talk to you guys about things that science actually backs it up. There's not a lot out there that back up what we do or what I do for a living. Being a psychic and a medium, I talk to people that have crossed over. I know that I'm talking to them because, well, my clients tell me, yes, you've got grandma. You absolutely knew that purple was her favorite color and that she loved to crochet and she was allergic to, blueberries. Well, how would I know that, right? About your dead grandmother, right? Well, I know that because I'm talking to her. Also, I know a lot about being psychic because I'm a psychic. But what's really fascinating is when science is able to say, this is irrefutable. And in this case, I'm going to give you some interesting statements that children have made to their parents. In the process of researching this division and this doctor has noted down some things that you may be interested in. Perhaps you've heard your children or grandchildren say some of these very things. Some of them are, you're not my mommy or my daddy, or you're my mommy, but you're not my daddy, right? And listen, kids say crazy things, so we just brush it off like, that's crazy talk. What are you talking about, honey? Go play, right? Don't we say things like that? How about, I have another mommy and daddy, or another mommy? How about, when I was big, I used to have blue eyes and I had a car. I had my own car. Used to have blue eyes, but maybe now they have brown eyes. Sometimes they say things like, that happened before I was in mommy's tummy. They may say something about an older sibling having an accident and have a full memory of it, even though no one has told them, at the age of, say, 3, and say that happened before I was in mommy's tummy. Now, how do they know that? This doctor has researched this. He's actually written a book that I will share with you as well. Children say, I have a wife and a child. I have a wife. I have a husband. I have children. Again, sure you do, Susie. You know what I mean? Go play with your blocks and, stop talking crazy. Another one is, I used to drive a truck. I used to live in a different town. Sometimes they say, I used to live in a different country, right? They may say how they died. I died in an auto accident. I was hit by a falling tree. I died in a war. I was sad when my mommy died. Well, no, honey, I'm right here. Yes, but my other mommy, right? These things, again, that because society just does not have an explanation, and our brain does not have an explanation, we simply brush it off, put it out of our mind, forget about it, and move on. But now, humans are a lot more ascended. And we remember these things now. Now parents are starting to pay attention. They're starting to write these things down. They're certainly starting to videotape them with their phones. Tell me again what you just said. I said that I used to have blue eyes. What color are your eyes now? Brown. When did you have blue eyes? When I was a man. What are you now? A little girl. So you can get that all on video. And they're not making it up. This isn't an imagination. In the case of this researcher, this doctor, whose name is Jim Tucker, he wrote a book called Return to Life, in which he really researched these kids and researched what they said to see if it was true. So if they said, I used to live in this town and I was this person, whatever details they could give, he would then look up those details and was able to prove that this child was indeed telling the truth. One of the people in his book, one of the kids in his book, several of the kids in his book have been featured publicly with their parents' permission. And I just think that's fascinating. I do know that, for instance, this one child in the book, his name is Ryan Hammonds, had a verifiable memories of being a Hollywood extra and a talent agent. Verifiable memories. He has no way that he would know this, right? There was another one who was a fighter pilot. So these kids would have no way of knowing about a particular plane and specifically about how one would fly a particular plane at the age of 4, 5, or 6. You just wouldn't know that about a World War II or World War I plane. So I love it that this really seems to be, in my opinion, irrefutable. And I would say that kids in general are psychic. Okay, this is probably something you know yourself. We all grew up with imaginary friends, right? Well, in many cases, those imaginary friends were not so imaginary to the child because the child could see the person and describe the person. And the person, sometimes they would say, it's my grandma. Well, honey, your grandma has passed on. Yes, but my grandma is here. Again, what do? Shush, 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 go play. Children are psychic. Honestly, we're all psychic. All humans are psychic. It is our birthright. It is who we are. However, when we're kids, we can express this. We are free. We don't know any better. Society hasn't said you're going to get in trouble or you're going to get locked up and thrown into the loony bin if you talk like that. That's why these children, we tend to lose our psychic abilities and our special friends around the time that we go to school. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, well, now we're going to school with a lot of kids that we don't know, and we're really trying to blend in. Humans are really kind of pack animals. We try to blend in as best we can. And if you stand out, you tend to get picked on. So you learn pretty quickly that it's not a good idea to talk about the ghost that's in the bathroom, or that your grandmother is sitting next to you at the cafeteria table and your friend Maya should not sit there. You learn pretty quickly when you get the odd stares. You realize that Maya is living, grandma is dead. I think I have better chances making a friend with Maya. Let me throw grandma over the edge, right? Let's get rid of her. So the other thing that happens is we engage our thinking brain. About the time that you really start engaging your thinking brain takes over. Your psychic abilities do not come to you from thinking. They come to you through your imagination. Your imagination is the language of spirit. So as you start to learn your ABCs and you start to learn to read, of course, we start learning maybe at 3, 4, 5 years old. But when you're in school, and you're in school for 5 hours or 6 hours, that's a dedicated, intense learning. And that's when it all kind of grinds to a stop for the majority of kids. They literally switch their focus to really stimulating their brain cells, thinking, not daydreaming, not allowing their imagination to run wild like it did before they started school. So that's why kids often sort of stop that type of interaction around the time they go to school. Now, as we ascend, now, I mean, what does that mean? Briefly, the planet is ascending. Mother Earth is ascending. You could think of ascending as growing, right? You grow your ability to do math. You grow your ability to become a better driver. You grow your ability to be a better employee at work. You grow your ability to be better at the hobby that you've chosen. So we're always striving. We're always growing. We have a never-ending capacity to grow. Ascension is a different type of growth, but it's the same, it's growth. So even though we are maybe not aware of growing in that way, we are, because everything around us is ascending. Now, you may also say to me, Susan, this place doesn't look like anything that's ascending. This looks like it's descending. This looks like it's going to hell in a handbasket, right? But I would say to you, pull out a history book. Pull out a history book and read the history of your country, of your peoples. And if you can prove to me that we're not better off, that we're even at our worst, we're still better humans than we were 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And even if you say, yes, but we're backsliding, we're going to turn into, that was my dog shaking the house as she got off of the bed. We're descending and things are getting so much worse. That's not really true. That is simply how it feels to you right now, which is I'm going to validate that for you. I'm sure it feels like that. I'm sorry it feels like that. But the truth of the matter is, we're still way better off. So the earth is ascending. People are ascending. Now, the other thing that's happening, and I have a video about this, is star seeds. Now, star seeds is a term that's used far and wide, and a lot of people have their own definition of it. I would just say to you that for lack of a better definition, I'm going to use star seeds, but I'll tell you that a star seed is a soul, a human soul that has not been on Earth very long, has not had many incarnations on Earth. Now, we've had star seeds. Somebody would say, we're all star seeds. Of course, we all came from somewhere else. We all came from the stars. But some of us have had 1,000 lifetimes here or hundreds of lifetimes here. And others of us have had a handful of lifetimes here. That's a big difference in your energy. If you've only been on planet Earth 3, 4, 5 times, you're a much different energetic soul than someone that has experienced hundreds of soul lifetimes. Neither one is better, neither one is worse, but they are different. So we're also experiencing greater numbers of star seeds coming in as kids. They call them indigo children or star children, and they have lots of names for them. The bottom line is they're newer souls to Earth. Now, they could be a very old soul throughout the universe. This isn't the only place to incarnate. They could be very old souls, very accomplished souls. But as far as Earth, plane time continuum, they're new. They're new here. Now, these new souls, these star kids, these indigo kids, whatever you want to call them, of course, they're more psychic. because having just recently had incarnations where everything that they did used telepathy and psychic abilities. These psychic abilities are stronger in them. You might understand that maybe they haven't been bred out, or they haven't had hundreds of lifetimes for these psychic abilities to just be replaced with human-like abilities. So these kids that have come here, that are new here, have very strong psychic abilities and strong empathic abilities. These kids are way more psychic than kids were 50 years ago. Now, I'm not saying a kid couldn't be psychic 50 years ago, because that's me. I've had 4 or 5 lifetimes here on this planet Earth. I was very psychic as a kid. I could see ghosts. I could see all these things as a child. So yes, we had psychic kids even 100 years ago, but the preponderance, the prevalence of them is much greater today. Much, much greater today. I would say that on average, right now in 2023, 40% of kids born are very psychic. Very psychic. That's a huge number. And 60% of kids born are empathic. Now, if you go back to the 1950s, they're telling me that in the 1950s, it was more like 25% of the kids were empathic. That's a triple almost jump in empathic kids. I'm going to ask them the same thing about psychic. In the 1950s, they're saying about 20% were psychic. So again, that's a huge jump in the number of kids today that are psychic. As we keep going, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this number is actually going to get bigger exponentially. It's not just going to go tick, tick, tick. It's going to go leap, leap, leap. Now, this means that these kids are not going to be as likely to just take their psychic abilities and put them on a shelf when they go to school. More and more of their psychic abilities are going to stay with them as they go into that first grade, second grade, or that primary education. So you can imagine this is going to really have some outcomes, some challenges. Because if you've got a kid, now we've all seen Harry Potter, right? We've all seen Harry Potter. Maybe they made that movie to prepare us. But if you've got a kid going into the bathroom and saying that there's a ghost in there, I'm just going to tell you that teachers have got enough on their plate already, right? I mean, teachers have got enough on their plate already. They're not supposed to be paranormal investigators. So we've got some changes coming, because what's happening is those kids are not going to back down. You're not going to be able to shush them. That's the big difference here, because their energy is so strong. Because the psychic abilities, because their ability to remember past lives, because of their ability to have premonitions about what is to happen, is so much stronger in their energy, they can't simply put it on a shelf. They can't simply just divorce it. It truly is more integrated into who they are. And other kids, because other kids have grown up with Harry Potter and a lot of things like that, they're going to be more accepting of the kid who sees the ghost in the bathroom. So whereas for me, it took me until well into my 30s before I felt accepted as the oddball that could see ghosts. And then at that point, it was really cool, right? I mean, who doesn't want to have a friend that can see ghosts and talk to ghosts? I mean, so that actually worked out well for me to a degree. But now what we're going to see is these kids are going to be less vilified and more accepted and potentially in the future revered for their abilities. But it does put these kids in an awkward situation because even as an adult, as a psychic adult, you start to realize that you don't really want to know what your friends are up to, right? If you can tap in to your friend's relationship and then you find out some things you don't want to know, well, then it's a matter of maturity. Some people wanting to prove that they have psychic abilities may pull their friend aside and say, hey, this is going on with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you should know because I'm psychic and I know that I got this hit and I know it's strong. And even if you were to look at their phone on Thursdays, or if you were to notice their actions on Sunday afternoons, this is what you can look for. Well, it's great. You prove to everybody that you're a psychic, but you've lost a friend because that relationship is over. The person they're in the relationship hates you. Your friend doesn't like you anymore. It's a lonely life. It can be a lonely life. Now, for an adult, that's hard enough to deal with. But for a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old who walks up to their teacher and says, I'm sorry you're going through a divorce. And the teacher's like, my God, who told you that? Nobody. Well, surely somebody told you. No, nobody told me. Are you sure you didn't? No. This is where we're going. So this is sort of Pandora's box is what they want to talk about. As these kids have these abilities, if we don't, if parents and frankly society doesn't start acknowledging it and helping those kids, then that's going to kind of cause some other repercussions with the kids. I mean, you could see kids becoming depressed. You could see kids withdrawing from their friends, from school, from society. It's a heavy burden to know the future. It's a heavy burden to bear when you don't know what to do with it. So this is kind of where we're going. And it's really cool that kids are psychic these days. But we're really going to need to be very sensitive to their needs. And this isn't a time when we're not very sensitive to the needs of our children right now. So I think this video is probably right on time for people to watch. And, you know, if you're a grandparent or if you're an aunt or an uncle or a parent, you can do what you can to help that child. Maybe you just say, I understand where you're coming from. Or you may say, you know, your grandmother had this gift. Now, there's a few of my clients that luckily were told, oh, you know, your grandmother had this gift. You're just like your grandmother. Well, in my family, that's not the case. We believed in ghosts. We joked about ghosts. We all of us experienced some pretty crazy things growing up. But if you really came out and said, I'm a psychic, I'm a medium, they would laugh you out of the family. And then you would be the target of a lot of jokes and really ridicule. So it wasn't safe, right? It was sort of like we were the band of merry kids that all knew that stuff was happening in our house, but we really couldn't seriously talk about it. We had to accept it and endure it in secret. So that's not the best way for a child to deal with these abilities, especially considering that the guides are saying that these kids are going to have more abilities, and the abilities are going to be more compelling. Again, you're not going to be able to just put them on a shelf. You're going to feel compelled to tell the teacher that, I'm sorry that this happened to you. Or God forbid, you're going to get into a wreck. I mean, think about that. That would be horrendous if that actually happened. Imagine how that kid would feel. Imagine how that teacher would feel. So this is kind of coming for us. I would say that it's probably happening now, they're telling me, but for sure, as we go 5, 10, 15 years into the future, this is really going to be a thing. And I think any way that you can support these kids would be good. And that's why I started it out with something that's scientifically verifiable. Again, this guy wrote a book called Return to Life, and it offers accounts of very strong American cases of young children who remember previous lives. I want you to understand, this is scientific. This isn't something that we're all making up. This is real. And the planet is ascending and humans are ascending. And this is what kids will be able to do in the future more easily, more frequently, and potentially with more challenges with society. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Please leave me your comments in the comment section. If you have a psychic child, a psychic grandchild, if you want to share their experiences, I always enjoy reading your experiences. I personally think that the comment section of these Waaay Out Wednesday videos is the best. I mean, if you do nothing else, read the comments, because it's a treasure trove of experiences that we're all sharing. And I really feel like we can all learn so much from each other and honestly feel less alone. This can be, again, as the guide said, this can be a lonely experience, but it doesn't have to be. There's people like all of us out there. And as we go forward, we're going to search and seek each other out, and we're going to support each other more. Perhaps in some of the bigger cities, there'll even be support groups for psychic kids. And that would be a great thing as well, wouldn't it? Again, thanks so much for watching. Take really good care. I hope to see you again in my next Waaay Out Wednesday. And you can always find this video series under the playlist Waaay Out Wednesday, or WOW for the acronym, on my main channel if you look for the tab playlist. Okay? Talk to you soon, and for sure, next Wednesday.